I'm not going to mince words here, and we'll cut right to the chase. It seems that, while everyone had their eyes focused on Hurricane Helene, the DoD quietly updated one of their directives, an update that now authorizes the use of lethal force against American citizens during times of unrest, mere weeks before the 2024 election. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I actually saw Braden cover this over at Langley late last night, well, by the time you see this, 2 nights ago, and had already decided to look into it first thing this morning when I got tons of emails and comments about this. So thank you everyone for the tips. Honestly, if Braden hadn't already covered it, I would have thought it wasn't real. Now, before I get into it, I do have certain obligations on this channel, and what a convenient time this is to give the world a little PSA about Ammo Squared. Ammo Squared helps you stay stocked up on ammo automatically with a set it and forget it approach that lets you pick your calibers, your monthly budget, and how often you want it shipped, so you never have to worry about ammo shortages or changing prices locally or online ever again. Their company is designed to help gun owners stock up on ammo on literally any budget. This monthly budget can be anything from the price of a few boxes to the price of a single round if that's how much you can spare. Everything about it is fully and 100% customizable. There is no minimum to buy, no membership fees, and all ammo is factory new from brands that you trust. They only ship it when you want it, and the rest of the time it is stored for you in a climate-controlled environment. So, thank you to Ammo Squared for providing such a cool and valuable service to gun owners since 2015. That PSA just felt pertinent to the story. Alright, so here we go, Liberty fam. I have the document in hand. This is DoD Directive 5240.01, just reissued on September 27th. This thing says right on the cover sheet that it is cleared for public release, so it's not even any kind of big secret. They're just not, of course, going to announce it in the nightly news. Here is the relevant section, section 3.3.A2C, under the things that require Secretary of Defense approval, a position that is appointed and not elected. Subject to paragraph 3.1, defense intelligence components may provide personnel to assist a federal department or agency, including a federal law enforcement agency or a state or local law enforcement agency, when lives are in danger, in response to a request for such assistance, in accordance with the following approval authorities. A. Secretary of Defense approval. 1. The Secretary of Defense may approve any type of requested permissible assistance described in paragraph 3.2. 2. The decision to approve requests for these types of permissible assistance described in paragraph 3.2 to law enforcement agencies and other civil authorities are reserved to the Secretary of Defense. Provision of personnel to support response efforts for civil disturbances, which may also require presidential authorization. Note the may also, not does. B. DoD response to chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, and high-yield explosive incidents. And now check out option C. Assistance in responding with assets with potential for lethality, or any situation in which it is reasonably foreseeable that providing the requested assistance may involve the use of force that is likely to result in lethal force, including death or serious bodily injury. It also includes all support to civilian law enforcement officials in situations where a confrontation between civilian law enforcement and civilian individuals or groups is reasonably anticipated. So, the requested assistance may include the use of force that is likely to result in lethal force in confrontations between law enforcement and civilian individuals and groups. Now, I know some of you are going to point to the fact that the U.S. military is prohibited from engaging domestically with citizens, except in very narrow exceptions that are spelled out as part of the Posse Comitatus Act, with a penalty of a fine or 2 years in prison, which seems like a pretty negligible sentence, all things considered. However, except in cases and under circumstances expressly authorized by the Constitution or Act of Congress, willfully uses any part of the Army, the Navy, the Marine Corps, the Air Force, or the Space Force as a posse comitatus or otherwise to execute the laws, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 2 years, or both. And when you consider how many things have been labeled as threats to democracy and threats to the administration lately, and the way that the DHS has been expanding its definition of domestic terrorism to include Trump voters, people who buy Bibles, gun owners, or anyone who consumes alternative media sources like this video, when you consider that January 6th was labeled a treasonous conflict between the state and civilians, it's a little concerning. And some people might think that stopping that would easily be worth a paltry fine or 2 years in prison. How that relates to this document, I can't tell you. Don't really know. Now, this is an intelligence document applicable to any, quote, DoD components. So what is this? Well, the document defines this as OSD, the military departments, the Office of the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the Joint Staff, the Combatant Commands, the Office of Inspector General of the Department of Defense, the defense agencies, the DoD field activities, and all other organizational entities within the DoD. And as per section 1.2, this applies to all DoD intelligence and intelligence-related activities, and despite being labeled as about intelligence activities, includes units that are, quote, not intelligence units or intelligence funded. And if this is strictly about only intelligence gathering, then why is there a specific bullet point specifying that this document cannot be used for the armed forces or DoD employees to engage in or conspire to engage in assassination? And why, if it's only about intelligence, does it expressly state this DoD help can include the use of lethal force? Earlier on, it limits the scope to times of war or when specifically approved by the president, but we also had that bullet point that said may also be approved by the president, and says that any intelligence that could lead to using lethal force could instead just be approved by the Secretary of Defense. But it also says that component heads can act immediately for up to 72 hours before obtaining approval. Something else to consider, this document repealed all previous versions. The 2016 version was mostly focused on collecting intelligence and ensuring civil liberties protections. It emphasized strict oversight and authorization before collecting information on U.S. citizens, whether or not that was actually followed. It has zero mention of lethal force. None. Zip. Going all the way back to 1982, cooperation with law enforcement was strictly limited to investigating foreign intelligence, foreign terrorists, and international narcotics operations, protecting DoD employees, and preventing, detecting, or investigating other violations of the law. Again, there was no mention at all of lethal force or civil unrest there either. So, what does this all mean? I don't know. I am not a lawyer, I am not a military member, and I am sure as hell not the Secretary of Defense. But it is concerning in today's political climate that there is suddenly a document that has never mentioned lethal force, and now suddenly it does in the context of clashing with American citizens, again before an election that they are once again calling the most important election of our time. When the last one had questionable happenings, we'll say, that you're not allowed to talk about on YouTube. When Time magazine put out their gloating piece about the secret and well-funded cabal that fortified the election. When the last election saw January 6th, which the current administration latched onto as, again, a treasonous act perpetrated by domestic terrorists. All of this, and it is election season again, and we get this new document authorizing the DoD to use lethal force against American citizens when the government deems that it is appropriate. I would love your opinions down in the comments. If anyone has any particular insight here, that would be helpful. But as it stands, the way I'm reading it, this doesn't give me the warm and fuzzies. And if it really is all about intelligence and nothing else, and intelligence that could lead to lethal force against Americans, Well, that is still equally concerning, considering the fact that there have been many whistleblowers and investigations that have come out about the biases of the particular intelligence-based alphabet agencies, we'll say. Would I bet my life that the alphabet agencies and Fed boys would always provide 100% honest intelligence without political bias or without being weaponized against the American citizens? Absolutely not. So that is it for this video, guys. Take that as you will. The information is right there. You know what? I will link them down in the comments so you can read the policies themselves. Again, let me know. I would love to hear what you folks think about this, but I have my suspicions. Anyways, that is it for this video. You guys know the drill for all of the algorithm things. This is definitely something that I think needs to be shared out and get more eyeballs on it, though there are a lot of folks already talking about it in my comment section, in my inbox, so thank you again. And as always, thanks for tuning in. Stay safe out there, and happy shooting.